I'm Daniel Ricciardo. I'm doing the British Formula 3 Championship with Carla Motorsport, and I'm also not attending, but being part of the Sunoco Driver Challenge.
A lot of emotions because, the cockpit is something that I got very used to for many years, just wanted to savor the moment.
Daniel Ricciardo has drawn the curtain on his Formula One career at the Singapore Grand Prix. This channel had predicted the retirement of Ricciardo following the sacking of Logan Sargent. Liam Lawson was James Vowles' first choice to take the seat, but when they approached Red Bull, the team made it very clear that they would give them Lawson, but under the condition that he could be recalled at any point in the season. Williams wasn't satisfied with the condition, and that was how the brilliant Franco Colapinto was signed. This need by Red Bull to recall Lawson at any point was the strongest evidence that a shake-up was imminent in the team, and it was Ricciardo who had to make way. The 8-time race winner was on course to becoming a Formula One great, but his decision to quit Red Bull due to their favouritism towards the young Verstappen triggered a string of bad choices that abruptly ended his career. Some have believed the Aussie shouldn't have given up his Red Bull career. Christian Horner loved him and wanted him to stay and compete. But Ricciardo was ultimately lured away by Renault's $51 million contract, an amount that made him the third highest-paid driver at the time. Many were baffled about his decision to leave a team that was on par with Mercedes only to go labour at Renault, albeit a high-paying seat. After 2 strong years in Renault, he would later switch to McLaren, and that was where it all went downhill. Like a prodigal son, Ricciardo would later come back begging for a seat at Red Bull. However, the guy who left certainly wasn't the same guy who returned. Ricciardo was emotional after his last race in Singapore. Looking downcast after the black and white flag, he knew for sure that was his last time in the car. And so, he stayed in the cockpit a bit longer than usual to soak it all in for one last time. When it was all over, our dear Ricciardo gave an emotional interview. However, our story for today is all about the parting gift that Ricciardo gave Verstappen. Landon Norris had started the race in pole, and for the first time in 5 attempts, the Brit was able to remain in the lead after the first lap. Norris decimated all other drivers and even had time to play with the walls of Singapore. As the race drew closer, the Brit was not only running away with the lead, but was also bolting away with the fastest lap of the race to lock in a Grand Slam. A Grand Slam in Formula One is achieved when a driver starts from pole position, sets the fastest lap during the race, leads continuously, and ultimately crosses the finish line first. But Ricciardo dialed back the years to put in an electrifying lap to snatch the fastest lap from Norris, thereby ruining his Grand Slam. As we would know, the fastest lap usually attracts an additional point. The significance of this extra point is huge in a season where it looks like Verstappen is not going to win any more races. Red Bull are going to labour behind McLaren for the rest of the season, and snatching 1 point from Norris could be the only thing that will separate him and Norris at the end of the season. Ricciardo, in his very last dance, had decided to help Verstappen, and when the Dutchman was told about this help over the radio, this was how he responded with excitement.
Your old pal Daniel picked up a fastest lap at the end as well.
Thank you, Daniel.
Ricciardo would later be voted as the driver of the day. Not so much of his racecraft that day, but 20% of the voters wanted him to leave on the high. Ricciardo had given us all some of the finest moments in the sport. Our favourite move is his tendency to loom large behind the prey and leave his overtakes so late into the corner, before suddenly pulling the car aside to go past the target. However, this gesture from one team to a sister team has attracted the ire of Zak Brown, the CEO of McLaren. Ricciardo himself admitted after the interview that he had done the fastest lap with Red Bull in mind. OB team principal Laurent Mekies said Ricciardo was given the chance to set the fastest lap because this may have been Daniel's last race. Ricciardo said he did it with a little bit of Red Bull in mind and maybe just to have one last crack at doing a fast one. Zak Brown, who has been complaining about sister teams as far back as 2018, said he was going to bring this discussion up with the governing body. "That's a nice A-B team sporting thing that I didn't think was allowed," he told Sirius XM. "But that's not the first time we've seen it. Probably won't be the last." Ricciardo will always be remembered as a force in the sport, But we can't help but wonder what could have been had he had the chance to compete in a proper car. But we have a question for our viewers. What do you think of Ricciardo's career? This is Front Lockout, signing off.